All right, mic check, I'm good. So I'm Max Ceron, CWB Association Welding podcast. Today we have a really cool guest, Welding podcast.
The show is about to begin.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the CWB Association podcast. I'm Max Ceron with you guys again, here to have another great time. I'm glad you guys have been tuning in and the shares are hitting and everything's going really great with the podcast, and I really appreciate all the people that have been listening. On the show today, we have a fan, a listener, who has just informed me that he's listened to all 18 episodes as of today. So, I really appreciate it. And it's Al Tito. Al, how's it going?
Good, you?
I'm doing awesome, man.
I'm doing good. Theriault.
Theriault.
You'll get it. It's
All
okay.
right. So we were just having a conversation off air about French because I'm trying to learn French, like working for the CWB now. There's messaging that has to go out in English and French. So basically, we have to pay for someone to translate the things I say, which I feel like is a waste of money. Like I should learn. But are you a fluent French speaker, Al?
I am. I grew up in a French household and went through school and everything. Born and raised in French.
So where is this household? Where were you born and raised?
So I was born and raised right here in Sudbury, Ontario. It's nickel capital of the world, Northern Ontario. So that's where I'm from. That's
So
where I hide.
is there lots of French speaking community in your area there in the nickel capital?
Yeah, it's definitely a bilingual city for sure. We have some clusters of a nice variety of languages here, and it's just growing more and more. Um, but we definitely, if you had to pick the top two languages, it's definitely French and English.
That's good. Like I mean, in Saskatchewan, there's a lot of French areas that are very, very French, but I feel like in the cities, it's not really that well represented. Like there's not a lot of French, and I know there's a couple bilingual schools here or immersion schools they call them, but I think I've been to other cities in Canada where I feel like French is a lot more prevalent.
Right. Yeah. And like even we have French colleges here, so yeah, we definitely have a good mixture. It's definitely a bilingual city. I mean, the majority of places, if you're English, you'll have no issues. Like you're very rarely gonna have any. It's getting less and less. I'll say that. Even myself, growing up, I went to French grade school, French high school, and then as soon as I left, I married an English girl, and there went my French. I just don't I don't speak it too much, all too often, and yeah, it's very rare that I speak French now, unless it's mandatory for work or I meet someone that needs to have something translated or spoken to be better understood. Then I will, and then but it's no problem.
I think you're our third guest here on the podcast that are fluent in French, maybe fourth, because Kevin, Sebastian, you. And I think one of the Ontario peeps was a Frenchie too. So yeah, see me representing. Look, I'm
Okay,
representing.
there you go, there you go.
All right, so Al, you are in Sudbury, Ontario, and you're on the show. And you got on the show in a very interesting way because you were following on Instagram and you started commenting on things, and I love the comments, I love the feedbacks. I try to reply to everybody that sends anything, and we started kind of chit chatting, and now we like message like DM, like we like talk about work stuff and stuff like that, and and I think it was Daniela or somebody, one of the other guests was like, when are you gonna have Al on the show? And you were like, ha ha, yeah, right. I'm not famous enough. And I was like, whoa, Al is literally the most famous person in Sudbury, Ontario. So
Oh, okay, come on now, listen to this. No, I attribute it to just persistence, and like I told you, you had to scrape the bottom of the barrel to. You must have nobody lined up and said, okay, I guess we're gonna squeeze this guy in because there's really nothing better that we can get right now. So,
well, and like I
uh,
explained to you when you said
yeah,
that
no,
to
I
me,
just
when you said that to me, I was like, uh, I'm not scraping the bottom of anything, right? Because you can scrape the sides just fine.
Nice, nice. I like it. No,
So,
I just
go ahead.
I'm a certified inspector with the CWB. I've been a welder for many years, and for the longest time, I always felt like there was like a disconnect. As a welder, you know, the inspector would come, check my tickets. He was like, you don't question him. He was the law, and then he would leave. That's how I felt, anyways. Um, but then when I got online and I started noticing, hey man, CWB's on here. That's awesome. And then I found the podcast, and I just kind of jumped on, and this is great. Like this, and you've said this before. You've had that conversation many a times with other of your guests. Like the community's there. You just have to go find it. And then once you find it, it's an awesome community to be included, involved. Just amazing skills out there. It's phenomenal, and just to be a part of it, to listen to people's stories, share your story. It can definitely it can motivate other people, especially the younger ones, or even older ones that want to try something new. They're trying to find the spark of life. Well, welding is it. So it's just something that I really enjoyed, and I became very persistent. And I guess squeaky wheel gets the grease, and I got the email.
Yeah, that's good. In your life as a welder, you said you were welding. What was the kind of gigs that you were welding? Like, what was your domain in welding?
Oh man, I've done quite a bit. I started off with stick welding. I did about 2 years nonstop of 6 days a week, 10-hour days, burning rod. Then from there, we had our firstborn, so I wanted to spend more time at home. So I went to the shop, did some flux core for a couple of years, rebuilding trucks, trailers, tankers, that kind of stuff. Got introduced to a bit of aluminum. From there, I went to more of a cleaner shop and started doing some stainless, more aluminum, mild steel MIG, um, and then got into some pulse welding on that because it was a lot of big heavy stuff. So
Hmm.
got some nice machines, and that's when I was introduced to TIG welding. So I started doing some TIG, not a lot, but just enough to develop a passion for it. I just love it. So I did that for a while, and then after a number of years, one of my fellow coworkers sent me a text, and he asked me if I was looking for another job, and I wasn't. I was pretty satisfied with where I was, but I'm not getting any younger, and I want to get off my hands and knees if possible. So they were looking for an inspector, for someone to help to do some inspection and kind of lift up the quality game of this company. So I thought, well, I'll throw my hat in the ring. Let's see what happens, and I got it. So that's how I got into the inspection.
So that was probably, I assume, as part of a QA team. Now, when you got in on at the company, did they put you through the inspection course, or did you have to go do that on your own for your level one?
So at first, I was just doing the inspection, and then the company promotes growth, it promotes learning. So I introduced them to CWB courses. And with that, I kind of, with my persistence, went after the inspector's course. And they actually sponsored me through it. So they were kind enough to have me go and do my level one. So, and I'm looking at going for level two as soon as COVID calms down a little bit.
Hmm. And for the listeners that are out there, like, I'm not to be like a total sellout, but if you're a welder and you're looking to get better, the inspection courses are awesome. Like, you learn so much about the deeper theory of welding, and more what's going on in there. You get way better into the metallurgy and into the, like, the reasons for faults and problems with welds. And just so you know, if you're a CWB Association member, they offer some of the teaser courses, or the first few chapters, for free. So you can go online and get some of your basic inspection. I think basic inspections on there. And I mean, like, that's awesome stuff to learn. Like, and how did you feel coming out of the level one course? How did you like the CWB inspection course?
So it was pretty interesting. Like in the course, I was one of the few that actually had that many years of welding experience. So I had a blast.
Hmm.
Honestly, the majority of the stuff I was learning was the first time I was learning it, but it was stuff I was already doing. So now it was things like, oh, that's why I had to do it. That's why it worked so much better when I did that. That's what. So these are techniques and things that I learned over my career that, you know what, if I do this, if I take the mill scale off, it's always better. It always, every welder knows it. Sometimes the boss doesn't want it because it takes too much time. It's whatever. But then when you go through the course and you start learning the metallurgy behind what that mill scale is and what it can do and why why does it cause undercut and why does it, why do I have to turn my heat up to burn through it, and, all kinds of different things of the reasoning behind what you do every day. That was, yeah, I've learned so much since becoming an inspector that it feels like I didn't know anything. It was like I'm back to square one. I'm just kind of, wow, I thought I knew what I was doing, but apparently I didn't. I didn't know the technical reasonings behind it, and it was really intimidating at first. But then, when you're there, I was lucky enough to do it in class. I didn't do the online level one. So in class, there was a lot more interaction. You can, as a group, you were discussing things, and you would learn from your fellow student. Like the other students would share their experiences, and no, it was awesome. I really enjoyed it, and I'm really looking forward to level two if we can get there one day soon.
Oh, it'll
But
happen. Like, I
yeah,
mean,
no, it's definitely something for
one
sure.
way or another, the level two courses will be running this year. Um, when I have students that take metallurgy, there's always one or two that like it, but then there's a whole bunch that don't. And I remember having an older fella years and years and years ago start trying to explain some theory to me because I got into schooling for welding late. I was just welding. I just worked my way up from laboring. Like I never went to school for welding until I was already 10 years in when I decided to get my red seal. And I remember this old fellow telling me, like this is the reasons why this is happening. There's electricity and this is polarities and stuff. Just some basic stuff that, all welders should know. And I remember being like, I don't care. Like I can just hotter or colder, burn it in. And he says to me, look, metallurgy never causes a problem, but it'll solve a lot of them. So I was like, oh, okay. And then, as I learned more, dead right. Like you can have a lot of things happen wrong and you won't know what's happening until you get a little bit of that theory. And then problem solving gets easy. You just look at it and be like, oh, well, voltage, duh. Like you can just pick it apart, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Put a magnet beside someone while they're welding next time, and they'll appreciate metallurgy.
Man, let me tell you, I worked for a company where we material handled like crazy, and so we had all these magnets, right? Like the block magnets for moving materials around.
Yep,
And
yep.
we got a new fitter guy come in, and I was the head fitter of that place at that time, and so they brought in this apprentice fitter for me, and I was like, okay, cool. And he had like 10 years of experience working for another shop, and so I see him getting magnets one day, and a come along, and he's going to start building something, and I'm like kind of watching, being like, what's he doing? And he's putting magnets on plates and then strapping them with a come along to try to pull plates in together into place, which number one is against the law, just in case anyone knows. That is totally not allowed. Okay. And number two, he's trying to tack the plates now, and the tacks are like flying away on him. Like it's funny when you do try welding next to a magnet,
Yeah,
the weld puddle's like, "See ya, sucker!" Like it's out of there, man. And he
yeah.
and he couldn't figure it out. I'm like, dude, it's the magnets. Like Jesus, I thought you had 10 years experience. Like, come on, fired next. Like so,
But like you said though,
yeah.
like it's all stuff about, you can have the experience but you don't understand what's going on behind it. And then once you get to learn those things, then it's almost like common sense at that point, because now
Hmm.
it's, well, yeah, why didn't I think of that? What? But
Duh.
yeah, no, it's a fun ride, and I really enjoyed it. And I've always been, when I not to backtrack too much, but I actually got into welding by accident myself. Like I actually went to school to become an electrician. You're not the first one on your show to do that, but
No.
um, and then I went into laboring, and then I ended up going for a second career in Ontario. They have a program here. The government has a program for second career.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing what was called ceramic welding. I was just doing labor work, one of the smelter here, and so when they saw that on my resume, they're like, "Oh, well, we'll send you for welding. Do you want to try that?" And I said, "Sure. Well, I just need a job, so let's do it."
Yeah.
And then when I got into it, I really enjoyed it. So I just pushed for more and more information. So I reached out to bigger companies that offered free stuff like Lincoln and Miller. Any books that I can get my hands on, posters, whatever I can get, I would start learning and getting into it. So for me, to get into the inspector role and just again get more books, get more knowledge. I love it. I love every part of it. But I also miss welding. I totally missed doing it. I enjoyed it so much that sense of pride to do a job, look back and say, I built that. I put that thing together and look at those welds. Like
Mm-hmm.
no one's ever gonna see them, but man, those are you know, it's the best welds I've laid so far. And if not, my next ones are gonna be better. And so I really miss it. So I decided to get set up here at home.
That's such a welder thing. I'm in my new job, the furthest removed from welding I've ever been. All my jobs, whether I was in supervisor, management, fabricator, welder, I was always near burning, and if I wanted to, I could strap up and get in there and weld. And I did in every job. I definitely liked it, and I like showing off because I practiced hard and I'm good at it. Like you work hard to be good, and you
Mhm.
want to keep those skills up. And now that I'm in this job, I really worry about my welding skills. Like I got a pile of CWB tickets that are going to expire in the next year, and I'm like, should I even bother renewing them? Because I don't know if I'll ever need them again. But there's something inside of me that says, yeah, do it. Like I gotta go keep, I gotta keep up my street cred, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. When I started inspecting on the floor, a couple of guys, because it was a completely new company, the guys on the floor, they didn't have a clue who I was, and
hmm
they didn't know my background either. And I got called out a couple times, and with pleasure, man. I brought my shield to work, and let's do this. So, so I put my equipment on, and let's go. After break, go out there and do a couple passes, and you know what? That's when it kind of fuel that fire inside of me again. That man, I miss doing this.
hmm
I just couldn't believe actually how it surprised me how much I missed doing it. Just being able to have that sense of pride of laying that nice like that weld and just being able to make stuff. I've always enjoyed doing that. Obviously, it was always for other people or for other, for my employers. So I wanted to try to get some of that and bring it home.
yeah.
My tickets, I will admit, I've allowed them to expire as well. I've been given the opportunity to, like when I first got the inspection role, they had asked me if I'd be willing because I never had a metal core ticket.
hmm
I've always had GMAW and FCW, but I never did it with metal core. So that's the primary consumable they're using, and WPDSs they're using. So then they said, well, if you're inspecting it, you may as well have your ticket. So, okay. So I did my flat, my horizontal, and I got the tickets. And that was over 2 years ago now. And now they're expired again. But
And
since I've owned them once, they're satisfied, I guess.
metalcore is such a nice wire to weld with too. It just hums in so nice.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I was surprised because like I had next to no experience with metal core.
Mm.
So I just set up a machine and just kind of played around with it for a few minutes, ran a couple beads on some scrap, and wow, this is really easy compared. It just like you said, it just went in so nice and no problem. So
Yeah, and
let's
for
let's
the
go
young
at it.
welders out there that are learning to do metal core and find that it's so nice, I will warn you to watch your voltage temperatures. The wire does have a max voltage setting, and you can sneak past max volts on a lot of wires like flux core and solids, but do not flirt with the max voltage on metal core, because what you'll happen is that you'll get nitrogen cracking in the weld sometimes months later. So those welds will break apart. So be careful. I had to be a part of a huge Q&A or R&D project at a company where these huge welds were beautiful, like welds, and they'd go out and then they'd come back like 2 months later all split, and we figured out it was too high a voltage.
Hmm,
Yeah, now you know.
there you go. Learn something new every day.
All right, so we're at the halfway mark here. We're going to take a break and for our sponsors, and then we'll be back here with Al and continue talking about what's going on in his career, both now at home and professionally. So make sure you stay tuned here to the CWB Association podcast. And we're back here at the CWB Association podcast. I'm Max Ceron. Thanks for tuning in. We have a great show today with Al, who's a fan and now a star, and about to take off. He's the J Beebs of the welding world, coming out of Ontario. So, Al, we were talking about you having this passion for welding, but you kind of got removed from it because you ended up being an inspector, which you love, and it sounds like you're really passionate about your job and where at the company you're at, but you
Yep.
decide to reinvest into yourself now on the side. So what's going on with you, and kind of what's your little projects that you got going on?
So yeah, I just decided, you know what, I gotta reignite that love for welding and just keep it alive. And at the same time, I'm looking at long term. You know, what's my long term plan
Hmm.
uh, for my life, my family. So I just decided it was time. It was time to, set myself up at home. I don't have too much of a big space, but you don't need a lot of space to do some awesome work. So I I had to tear down my old garage and build it back up from scratch because my old one was so bad that I couldn't even put anything in there. So I started off with that beginning of this year. Then from there, I started slowly investing into some equipment so I can get to welding. So I'm kind of looking at building a little side gig. I call it 575 Customs. It's that's where I live. That's my address is 575. So, and I want to, I make custom stuff, and that's where it all started. So, yeah, not too original, but
Yeah, super creative.
um,
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, the creation aspect of it goes into the work, right, Max? Like it
Right.
doesn't go into
Right.
the name. The name that'll just stay wherever it stays. So, I put all my, all the brains that I got left, I put it into the work. So,
It's like
so
peanut
yeah, I
butter,
just I
right? Like
make
you
all,
hear you hear the name peanut butter, it doesn't sound great, but then you eat it and it's fantastic, right?
there you go. See, you got it. So yeah, right now it's kind of I've just started with I made a few, one-off pieces, some art pieces. I love pushing myself. Just what's something I've never done before. I see a lot of stuff. Obviously, I'm on Instagram and I'm just watching everything and everyone, and man, it's like I want to try that. I want to push myself. I want to learn how it's done and the process behind it, and so I do that, but then of course, like if I can, the goal is to make a little bit on the side as well. So
Hmm.
I actually just got a contract with someone who wants me to make some custom kitchen cabinets, all out of
Ooh.
steel. So yeah, so that's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to that project. So I got that on the go, and if that's where it takes me, then that's awesome. I'll keep at it and I'll keep growing it. And I have two boys, so my boys are 10 and 12, so I'm getting them to come into the garage. And my oldest, he's gun ho. He wants to learn, so perfect. Teach him something, and then let him at it. If he wants it, it's there.
So
So it's a blast to be out there.
as a new business owner, and for other possible entrepreneur-minded young people that are out there, what would you say are maybe the first two pieces of equipment that you need to purchase if you want to get into making some welding, products in your house or your garage?
So two pieces of equipment: the welder and a grinder.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah.
Because I mean, if you're just starting off, you're probably going to do what I did and just recycle anything that people and guaranteed the first thing people do. Like right now, I have a shopping cart in my garage because someone thought, hey, you can make something out of this. Well, yeah, but it's covered in paint. So now I have to take that paint off. So what are you going to do? Well, you need a grinder,
Hmm.
and then with that grinder, there's a variety of tools that you can use to make your or your pieces workable, your steel usable, and then from there use the welder, and then you can really put those two together, you can make some pretty amazing stuff.
So did you graduate
So
right to an awesome welder? Or did you have like a little crappy one and then get a better one, or like how did you play that out?
I did a lot of homework. I definitely wanted something that I can TIG with because I love it so much, and I have so much more to learn on how to do it and the scope of what it can do.
Hmm.
But I also knew that I would need a MIG so that I can. And as much as I did a lot of stick when I started, I don't like it. I'll be honest. I'll be one of those rare ones that I'm just not a stick welder. I don't. I've burned too many rods. I don't know what it is. I just I can't stand
It's dirty and
yeah.
messy.
So I wanted some. Yeah. So I wanted something I can do MIG with. Like I'm in an enclosed garage. So I ended up with an ESAB, or not an ESAB. That's one of the ones I was really looking at.
The
I was
Rebel.
looking at ESAB. I was looking at Miller Lincolns.
Hmm.
Um, but I wanted a multi-function. I've done aluminum. I've done a lot of aluminum. So I wanted something that I can do AC and DC. So I ended up with an Everlast MTS 275, and that thing can do everything. And
That's the Lightning
so I
series,
right
isn't it?
away I bumped it up. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and then I bumped it up with the water cooler for the torch, for the TIG torch, just in case. I basically I reached out to them and I said, look, this is what I want, the capabilities that I want to be able to make. Give me a package deal because I want it all. And what am I looking at? And
Hmm.
then when I found out what that was, then I knew, okay, now I can save up and plan accordingly to get what I wanted. But I already knew the kind of work I wanted. So I'm set up for everything. I have the spool gun for aluminum. I'm set up for MIG. I'm set up for TIG. Everything. Anything I'm thrown at, I can do it. I have the capability. So that way it was a one-stop shop. And then while I was at it, I got them to, well, I paid for it. I didn't get them to throw it in, but I put in I got a plasma cutter, a 60 amp plasma cutter too. So I got the 62i. Then that way it was one stop, boom, I'm ready. Hit the ground running.
It's so interesting because everyone kind
So,
of buys different equipment. I got three welding machines. I got an old 225 AC stick, which I've had since I was like 17. It's an old buzz box. But if I plug it in, it still rocks. It's still like that. That thing doesn't break. But I'm not into stick welding unless I have to, or it's something really gross out in the field on. But then I bought a little IGBT 250 amper, which does TIG and stick, but it doesn't do AC. So that's one of the things. It
mm,
runs real nice on TIG and it does real nice welding for stick. But well, on 220 anyways. No welder runs good on 110. I don't care what anyone says. No matter what anyone tries to sell you, if you think you're going to get a good welder that runs on 110, they're lying to you. It may weld. It might
I'm set
do
up for
enough.
220, so I don't have
Yeah,
to worry about it.
yeah. But I don't have AC, and I'll tell you
But
why. Because I'm not a good aluminum welder, and that's been a weakness for me in my career. Is that's one of the things I've never been good at, and I want to get better at. So that's next on my list is to get an AC
mm,
set up so I can get better.
okay, yeah, I did. We did quite a bit of aluminum for. Actually, we built. I built a whole bunch of skips for the potash mines.
Hmm.
So I did tons of aluminum on that, and then um, I I got to build one of my boss got a 27-foot sport fisher boat, all aluminum. So a lot of that was a lot of TIG welding because it had to look all nice. So
Hmm.
yeah, that was fun. That was a fun. That was actually I learned a lot of on rigging and pulling, and because you gotta get those all that material to move without damaging the surface of it because
Hmm.
he was just gonna paint it and you're gonna see all the grind marks and everything. So you had to have some pretty ingenious ways of getting the material to go to where you wanted it, and then but yeah, no, I did a bit of it. I'm never gonna say that I was great at any welding process because just like some of your past guests have said, like you'll think you're really God's gift to the welding world, and then you'll lay a bead, and it's like, oh my God, what did I do?
It
How did
happens.
this happen? It's a slap in the face, and then it brings you right back down. So, yeah, no, I don't do that. I
Yeah.
just, yeah, I enjoy it. I've tons more to learn, and just when you think you got it, another another aspect of it opens up, and it's time to back to school. So
Well, you're like it's such
yeah.
a common saying, but you're only as good as your last weld, right? And it's so true
Hmm.
because really, no industry in the world is as regulated as welding. Like there really isn't. Like every weld gets checked, like every inch. Like I mean, it's nuts. Like could you imagine if home building was regulated like welding? Like I was talking to a buddy of mine who builds houses, and they have to be like within 4 inches over 20 feet to be square. It's like come on, like what do you mean? Like what is that? So with
Our
your
drawings are within a 16th of an inch, so
yeah, so
good luck
now
with that.
with your 575, are you looking to like get big and have a shop and like the whole like you have like a long-term vision of this maybe growing into something, or you want to just keep it on the side, just a hobby thing, indefinitely? Because like I mean, I've been running my garage shop out of the side of my house for 10 years. I did have a big shop and I went big and I did the whole thing for a while, but then I kind of decided I didn't want to do that anymore and I'd rather work for somebody and have the side gig. It's kind of where I landed. But like, where do you see yourself going with yours?
For me, for long term, it's honestly just I would like to grow it enough where I can sustain my family,
Hmm.
but that's as far as I need it to go. I know once you get bigger, I've worked for those bigger. Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm currently working for some of those bigger, and that's a lot.
It's a
And
lot, yeah.
I'm a very simple person. I like things to I like to keep things simple, and I like to be here with my family and spend time with my family, and so that to me is the most important thing is the time with my family. I'll never be able to get that back. Income, you can lose it, you can gain it back.
Well, you
You're
can get
talking
a
with
new
your I was
family.
just listening to the podcast. Yeah, I guess you could, but I like the one I have, so it's good. um, but yeah, no, to me, long term, it would be to sustain my family. I don't see the need to expand it to be way into this. I live in a city where I just commented that to someone on Instagram. I live in a city where there's probably as many fab shops as there are Tim Hortons. So I'm not about to start competing against those guys. It's fine. I'll do what I do. I'll bring the quality that I have a drive to bring to the table to the customer, if that's what they want. I enjoy that custom one-off. You know, when someone says, "Hey, do you want to make the same part 100 times?" No, no, I don't. But if you say, "Hey, have you ever made one of these?" No, but I want to. Let's
Hmm.
do it. Let's make let's make that napkin print a reality for you, like let's push the limits.
I just had like
So
major
to me that's
PTSD there.
that's what I would want.
I always get like the shivers inside when I hear napkin print. It's like, oh,
Yeah. I think the majority of us have worked in places where it's like, okay, this is what you need to do and this is how much you're going to do, and okay, what? That you want me to work off of that? Okay.
honestly, dude,
Yeah.
the worst is when they say, okay, we're gonna do X. Here's napkin Y. And there's scrap pile Z to pull your material from. So you gotta rip down a bunch of old
Yeah.
crappy rusty stuff to make something new. It's like, seriously, dude?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I worked in a place where there was no prints. It was just whatever you were told to make, go make it. And it got to the point where I had to write it down because then I'd make it and oh, that's not what I said. You're supposed to do it this way. Pretty sure that's what you said, but so then I started my own napkin prints because I need to make sure I do exactly what I was asked.
So get
But
this. I was
I don't
working.
have to
I
deal
got
with that
hired at a
anymore.
company where we had to build these they're like smaller storage bins for fertilizer and stuff like that. And they had lifting eyes, and there was 5 or 6 different styles of lifting eyes that you'd have to cut and drill and make yourself to put on these bins. and it was all just napkin. There was a guy there who had worked like 20 years, and he had all the like the measurements in his head that were memorized. And every time I had to go make a lifting lug for this guy, he'd be like, "Oh, 6 inches by 3 inches by two, and with a 3/4 inch hole." And finally, I was like, "Well, why don't we just have like a book of prints that we know what to do with?" And he was like, "Ah, that's just a waste of time. I know them all." So, anyways, I went home, and I've always known how to use CAD. So I got home, I did all the lifting eyes in CAD, put them into a binder, and I took them to work, and I showed my boss, and I was like, "Hey, man, I put all of these. I made prints, actual CAD drawings for you, so just to help out the company," and I got fired. He accused me
Oh man.
of stealing his intellectual property and wanted me to bring him my computer from home to delete my hard drive because I stole his lifting lug drawings. And they were
Oh
intellectual
man.
property, and I was like, seriously, dude, you know what? I think we're on the same page here. Bye.
The mutual decision.
Yeah, yeah. See you later. I'm out of here.
Wow.
All right,
Wow.
so
Yeah,
Al.
that's actually one of the things I'm starting to learn at work
Mhm.
right now is I'm getting trained with a lot of SolidWorks training. Next week, actually, I got a composer training with SolidWorks, so I'm looking forward to that. I work a lot with the manufacturing engineering group and the engineering group to look through the drawings and any kind of welding call outs and applications and make sure that the requirements are all
Mhm.
properly communicated. So yeah, I really enjoy the drafting aspect of it too.
So here's a hint for you if you're getting into that, whether it's Fusion, SolidWorks, what's the other one, Inventor, or AutoCAD. Once you
Mm.
get the fully licensed program, every one of them has a really, really solid built-in tutorial that no one tells you about. So if you actually go through the tutorial that's built into the program, it runs you through every single command and every single button on there, and it's actually super helpful. Like I took a CAD course and then I just went through the CAD tutorial, and I was like, the CAD tutorial was probably like twice as good as the actual course that I paid for. Like,
Well, because a lot of times those courses, I've taken a few of them so far. It's an instructor who's just going through, like even some of the books that you get, like the SolidWorks books that I have, it tells you right on the book this is not meant to just be used on its own. So
hmm
then the instructor just basically power reads through that and then okay, class over today, any questions. Whereas those tutorials, I know exactly what you're talking about too, and those tutorials, you're watching it live as it's going, so you can see it on your own screen. Okay, I have to go here, I do this, I do that, and that's the results. And
hmm
yeah, no, absolutely, it's awesome.
cool, man. So any wise words? We're heading to the end of the show here. Everyone always gets their spot that I give them some space here to kind of talk to the audience, talk to the people listening. Your career as a welder, and then inspector, and now, a little bit of a business owner. What advice would you give someone coming up, just starting to burn their first rods hitting the field?
What advice would I give? I have a one liner that I typically tell everyone, especially when I'm inspecting. Don't stop till you're proud. Don't ever stop until you're proud. And then when you get there, when you look back and you say, "Wow, I'm proud of that," just remember there's always room for improvement.
That's
So
good. I like that.
that's just something, like I've many a times throughout my career, I just pushed myself till I was proud. Then when I was proud, okay, now how do I go one step further? There's room for improvement. If I can't make the weld better, I can't find someone who can, learn from them. If I really can't, like there's really no way that I can foresee a better way to do it, then is there a faster way to do it? Can I do it without without distortion, without minimizing the braces or whatever else? That don't ever stop until you're proud, and then reach for the next step. Go one step further. There's room for improvement. And if you have that drive and you put that pride in your work, it'll get noticed. A lot of times, like even for me, I was a welder for over 12 years, and you just do your job. You go in, you go out, you go in, you go out. But someone noticed it. It was actually a guy from the machine shop who noticed my drive for quality, who ended up calling me years after he had left the company and worked for someone else. who got me into inspecting. So your signature, your welds are going to get noticed. And if you have that desire, any door and every door will be open to you. And especially right now with everything going on, the communities out there on social media, so many different platforms, you can reach out to them. There's so much to learn. Like I feel like a total noob when I go on there and start looking at what other people are doing, and man, it's just amazing. And then but it just opens up the opportunities. So put yourself out there and keep growing. There's no end to what we can learn, and it's awesome.
100%. I love it. I love it, and it's true. And just like someone helped you, people notice good work. People notice good work ethic. People notice energy. People notice like people's vibes. Like you just showing up for work and trying your hardest and being positive. That doesn't go unnoticed. And sometimes you think, I'm in a rut or I'm stuck or no one cares. You're wrong. People do care. People do notice. And maybe it's on you to bounce and find a new gig or wait for someone to call you. But what you want is out there. You just have to go get it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then just keep pushing. Keep being persistent. You'll end up on a podcast one day.
Awesome, man. Well, on that note, I want to thank you for coming on the show, man. It was a lot of fun. We chat all the time, and for all the people out there, it's AskMax75 on Instagram. Al's up there, so this is gonna get shared with his details. And make sure you listen to the podcast, and let's grow this community. Now with me working at the association, I'm really, really trying to get this going. I'm really focusing on content and materials and reaching out. I'm going to be really reaching out. So the call out's out to everybody. I want to hear from welders. I want to hear from fabricators, business owners. If you got a small shop and you want to showcase it, come to me. I will get it out there. That's what I commit to everybody. So, all right, man. Well, thank you.
Awesome.
And take care.
Thanks for having me.
We hope you enjoyed
right, you
the
too.
show.
You've been listening to the CWB Association Welding Podcast with Max Ceron. If you enjoyed what you heard today, rate our podcast and visit us at cwbassociation.org to learn more. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions or suggestions on what you'd like to learn about in the future. Produced by the CWB Group and presented by Max Ceron. This podcast serves to educate and connect the welding community. Please subscribe, and thank you for listening.